Okay, so today we're going to talk about the top 5 Mac myths. These are things I see over and over from people who maybe don't know that the Mac can do a lot of things that a few years ago it couldn't even do. So let's go ahead and run these down. Myth number 1 is the biggest one to get out of the way, and that's that Macs cannot run Windows software. It's just false. So now you do have to have a little bit of an addition. It's called Parallels installed on your Mac. But once you get that installed along with a copy of Windows, it runs right there flawlessly. You're able to run all your Windows apps, do whatever you need to do with Windows apps because you've got a little copy of Windows sitting there on the Mac. And this is not any sort of dual boot thing where you've got to restart your Mac every time you want to use Windows. It's just right there. It's accessible. The Windows programs are another icon right in the dock on the Mac. There's nothing special you've got to do. So if you've got those special applications, say your Amicus, your Time Matters, those sorts of things that you've got to run with Windows, well, it's not a problem. You just go ahead and have Parallels and the copy of Windows right there, and you get all the benefits of the Mac with still being able to run your Windows software in a normal window. There's no fancy tricks you have to do, no special configurations you have to do for the programs. They just work. Now, myth number 2, a big one. This one says that Macs are more expensive. Now, this seems pretty easy to say, yeah, this can't be a myth. I'm looking right at the prices. But what we need to take into account is the total cost of ownership for these systems. So your typical PC is going to last you about 4 to 5 years. Now, I'm sure some of you are hanging on to them longer, but you know what happens towards the end. Heck, even in year 3, these things start to slow down. You start to get more errors. You really start to feel it. You know, if you've got employees, that's about the time, year 3 or 4, that they're like, hey, when am I getting a new computer? When am I getting a new computer, boss? When's that coming? Well, with Macs, you can get great lifespan out of them for an average of 6 years. And unlike Windows PCs that towards those last couple of years start to slow down, Macs, to be honest, we don't see much of a slowdown. Now, that's not to say they're going to be anywhere near as fast as a new Mac at 6 years. That's not going to happen. But in terms of still doing work and not feeling like, I swear Microsoft Word used to be faster. What's going on here? Well, with the Mac, you're not going to have to worry about that. So when you've got that right there means that Macs are cheaper because you can use them longer and they hold their resale value a lot better. I mean, after 4 years, what's a PC worth? It's worth going to the recycler. With a Mac, you can still get probably $100, $200, maybe even $300 for it or more just by reselling it. Wipe out your data, go ahead and put it up on eBay, put it up on Craigslist. There's tons of companies that will actually take your old Apple products and give you a fair price. So if you don't want the hassle of dealing with somebody locally, you've got that additional revenue to put towards your new computers. And that's leaving aside all the additional expenses you need to have that you're probably not, but you really need to for Windows PCs to keep them protected. All the additional security measures and things like that. So myth number 2, Macs are more expensive. It's just not true. They're at least comparable to a PC, and again, by my calculations, they're actually cheaper to run over the long term because they last longer and they perform better during the time that they do run. So now let's look at myth number 3. Myth number 3, my software won't work on Macs. Now, we talked about with myth number 1 that you could run your Windows software, but believe it or not, I mean, the Mac's a smaller platform, but there's still a lot of software that works on both Windows and Macs. This is not a big deal. This is not something you need to worry about. 9 times out of 10, especially for the major software, your QuickBooks, your Microsoft Office, that sort of thing, it's going to go ahead and be able to run on the Mac natively. You're not even going to need that Parallels and Windows special setup there. It's just going to work. And of course, with a lot of web-based programs now, things like Clio for practice management, it doesn't matter whether it's on a PC or Mac. It's just going to run and work. So myth number 3, that my software won't work on Macs. This may have been true 10, 15 years ago when the Mac was at a completely different place than it is now. But it's, for in a lot of cases, for some software developers, trivial to port their software over to Mac. So you're going to find all the major applications there, your Outlooks, your Words, all that sort of stuff's going to work just fine. So let's talk about myth number 4. Myth number 4 is kind of a corollary to myth number 3. I can't use Office on the Mac. Or maybe you think, yeah, I can use Office, but it's not the same. Well, thankfully, Microsoft, at the last release, brought everything up to date. So it's Office 2016's current version on Windows, and that's also the current version on your Mac. So there's no differences, there's no feature changes. It's going to look very so slightly different. They've changed just a few small things to better conform to the Mac, but it's nothing you're going to notice in day-to-day use. And of course, the Office files you save on a Mac will work just fine on a Windows PC, vice versa. So if you've got clients, which I'm sure you do, on Windows, you don't have to worry that, oh, I'm sending them a file from my Mac. Doesn't make any difference. It's going to work just fine. There's nothing special you have to do. It just works. And if you've got that wonderful Office 365 subscription that includes the desktop version of Office, which hopefully you do for your business, that way you can get updates and don't have to worry about investing in a new version of Office, guess what? It's valid on PC or Mac. It's not a big deal at all. So let's look at the final myth, myth number 5. Myth number 5. Macs won't work with Windows PCs and servers. So what you're saying is, sure, if I wanted to convert the entire office, my entire firm over to Macs, this would sound pretty good, and then we could just run our Windows software that we absolutely had to have. But, I mean, I've got my Windows server, I've got a bunch of Windows PCs. I'm not going to spend several $1,000s right now to just convert everybody over, and that's fine, because Macs work just fine with Windows PCs. As a matter of fact, I have better success getting Macs and Windows PCs to talk to one another than I do sometimes with Windows PCs talking to each other. And in terms of your Mac working with your Windows server and applications like that, that works just fine. If you're looking for file sharing, those sorts of things, permissions, all that comes across. Your same user accounts that you've got set up on the network will come right over to the Mac. There's nothing special you've got to set up there. It just works phenomenally. Macs and Windows PCs talk together just fine. They can exchange files. They can access the same resources. There is absolutely no issue there. There's no hiccup. There's nothing that's going to prevent you from having that happen. So we've run down these top 5 Mac myths. Mac is a fantastic platform. We're going to look for future videos at some of the great reasons why, but there should be nothing that keeps you from switching to the Mac other than maybe you just don't want to. But past that, they work great. They're fantastic systems. So consider making the switch for your law firm. They're just going to be a great productivity boost, a great security boost for your firm right off the bat. And of course, the value for the Mac is superior right now to the PC as well. So something else to consider. I'm Chris Michael at ParkwayTech.com. Thank you so much for watching.